Her father was in the trading business and had married, though he was no longer a young man. He claimed that when he saw her beautiful mother, he fell in love as badly as any besotted boy. You didn't have to be Begura's father to notice the woman's beauty. She was slim and tall, with skin the color of an elephant's tusk. Her body was all flowing lines and smooth curves. Begura had heard that her father met her mother by pure coincidence. Her mother came from another land, a neighboring country called Sheo. The ship her mother was on wrecked in a storm. Begura's father's merchant vessel rescued her. Things weren't easy at first, for she couldn't communicate, but Begura's father spoke excellent Sheahnese and took her mother under his wing. He gave her a job and taught her the language. He had every intention of sending her back to Sheo as soon as he could, but things kept getting in the way. Her husband and child had been on the Sheahnese ship with her and died in the wreck. She had no family in her native land. Even if she went back, there was nowhere for her to go. Begura's father was a merchant, but he was also a thoroughly decent man. His business had grown because people esteemed him. He would never abandon this woman to her fate, alone in the world as she was. This is when his boyish love, so unbecoming in a man more than 40 years old, showed itself. Begura's mother might have been a foreigner with only a modest command of the language, but she was a hard worker. Soon, the servants came to accept her as the lady of the house. Begura's mother continued to be an excellent helper to her father after they were married. Begura especially loved to see them go to church together, hand in hand. The three of them would spend the day of rest praying together, and then they would have a meal somewhere before going home. What I really meant to do eventually was adopt a relative's child or something, her father said. The year after he was married, Begura was born. She was a girl, and her father, who had never imagined he would have a child of his own, was overjoyed. For 10 days after his daughter's birth, he handed out sweets to everyone who went past his shop. Her mother chose the name Begura. It was the name of a small bird, her father said, an adorable little animal. Begura looked nothing like her slim, lovely mother. She took after her short, stout father. She had smallish eyes, a nose so abbreviated it looked like it might have been broken off, and she was not very tall either. But love is indeed blind, and Begura's father bragged about her to everyone in his family. Begura was not what could be called beautiful, but she had brains to make up for it. She was walking less than a year after her birth. Within 2 years she was a voluble talker. After 3 years her father watched her with a grin and wondered who she would grow up to be. Yes, Begura had brains enough. Begura could remember that her mother had vanished before she was 3 years old. She also remembered what her mother was like just before she left. Her mother disappeared one day out of the blue. Her father was inconsolable. The employees were in an uproar, astonished, confused, and desperate to know what was happening. Her father commissioned portrait after portrait from various artists and spent his days searching. He thought maybe she had been the victim of a crime. As he searched, however, strange details began to emerge. For one thing, it appeared that information about her father's business dealings had been leaked. There was no concrete proof, but suspicious patterns began to appear in his imports and exports from other countries. Begura got her quick-wittedness from her father. He might have attracted the business with his winning personality, but that wasn't enough to build a merchant concern. He wouldn't ignore even the slightest sense that something was wrong. He checked the patterns in the account books for the several years, since Begura's mother had arrived and found a connection with one particular nation. That nation was Li, a country bordering Sheo. It had no diplomatic relations with Begura's country, but it lay to the east of Sheo, just as her own land lay to its west. Begura's mother had claimed to be Sheahnese, but she looked rather more like someone from Li. It hadn't raised his suspicions then. There were plenty of people of mixed origins in Sheo. "I will find your mother, I swear I will," he said to Begura, and then he gave her a copy of the scriptures and told her to study them. With nothing else to do, Begura had one of the servants read them to her. "Your mother must have had some reason. I'm sure something forced her to do what she did," her father insisted, and for the first time Begura thought he was being stupid. Years later her father said he might have found her mother. Someone who matched the portrait exactly had been located in Li. Full of joy, he boarded a boat and sailed for Li at once. Begura regretted it later. She should have reached out to him that day. He should have thought of her mother as dead. They could have lived a perfectly happy life together. But that dream was destined not to come true. Her father never returned. What happens to children who lose their parents? If Begura had been a little older, things might have been different, but for a girl not even 10 years old, there was nothing she could do. In less than a month her father's assets had been pillaged. There was nothing left. It is funny how a rich man turns out to have so many relatives the moment he dies. Bakura was left with just a few gold coins. A servant who felt some loyalty to her father had given them to her. If her father had been in his right mind, he would have appointed a guardian for his daughter. Her mother might have been beautiful, but she had driven her father mad. If anything ever happens to me, go to the church, he had said. That is what Bakura did, clutching her coins. The pastor was a decent person, and out of compassion he tried to send Bakura to the poorhouse, but she knew that was a bad idea. The moment her handful of gold coins was discovered, they were taken from her. Bakura knew what her goal should be. There was a teacher in the church who said that he wished to spread the teachings to the east. Indeed, he would be leaving very soon. Please, take me with you, Bakura said. The teacher, a 40-ish man who was somewhat distant at the best of times, said, I can't be having a child tag along. He was well built. He used to be a bodyguard for the teacher of a particularly large church. Brawn like his would be essential when going to a foreign land full of heretics and unbelievers. Bakura was just a child. She had no brawn and no power. She had only one thing, "O Lord, do you see us?" She knew the scriptures by heart after hearing them read to her so many times. She had asked to have them read to her so many times. She could recite every line without a word out of place, and now she did so. The teacher listened to her in silence. Please, she said again, take me with you. If she had no value, no one would so much as look at her. She had been valuable to her father because she was his daughter, valuable to his servants and employees because she was their employer's daughter. So she demonstrated that she could be a useful pawn in the teacher's campaign of evangelism. Moreover, Bakura was her mother's daughter as well. Her face looked Eastern. All she had to do was pick up the language and she could be all kinds of help on the road. The teacher looked very reluctant for a very long moment, but finally, mercifully, he caved. Maybe he realized that Bakura no longer had anywhere else to go. I won't be held responsible, even if you die, he said. I know, sir. So it was that Bakura went to the east with this teacher. They spread the word as they traveled, so their progress was slow. It took a full year to cross Shea and finally arrive in Li. Moving through Li turned out to be even more challenging. Along the way, the teacher received scriptures written in all kinds of languages. Attend to the words, he told her. Remember them. Learn every line, every letter. It might save your life one day. The teacher could be brusque, but he looked after her well. He was not naturally a patient man, however. More than once they found themselves chased by angry crowds of non-believers, which was annoying. Sometimes they were even locked up and subjected to what amounted to torture. Accursed unbelievers, I will hold your sins against you until the day you repent and believe. Ah, yes, the teacher was very fond of saying that. It was unclear to Bakura exactly what series of events had driven this man to choose heretic-ridden Li as his mission field, but it didn't matter to her. Although their group had come from a church, they didn't treat their child servant especially well. Fair enough, they did not have much money to spare. At those times Bakura would remind herself of who she was. She was not the daughter of a rich merchant. She was just a little beggar brat and a servant. Instead, she used all her wits to put food in her mouth. If she spotted a particularly kind-looking woman in town, she might start weeping nearby. This sometimes earned her some alms. Sometimes she met kids who would share their snacks with her if she clowned around and made them laugh. Sometimes free food would be put out at celebrations. Then, Bakura would eat as much as she could to make up for the times when she wouldn't be able to eat. If she spotted something that would keep well, she would quietly abscond with it. One time when they happened to be traveling with a party of itinerant performers, she learned sleight of hand. She discovered that if she watched the artists practice too openly, they would beat her. So instead, she climbed a nearby tree and spied on them. She knew that if she could perform these tricks for wealthy people, they might give her a few coins. The teacher was always angry when he discovered her performing these tricks. However, he must have felt bad that he could not reliably feed her, because he never took the snacks and small coins she had earned. After they had been in Li for a while, Bakura changed her name to Machu. The teacher told her she would have a better chance of surviving if she pretended to be Linese herself. I am told you are going to the western capital, he said. Yes, sir. The teacher and the rest of the group would be staying in a village that had one of Li's largest churches. They said it would be the perfect base from which to spread their teachings. Do you want me to come with you? Bakura and the teacher had been together for several years now, and he had a certain respect for her. I will be all right, thank you. Bakura was fully 12 years old now, going on marriageable age in Li. Ordinarily, one might consider her traveling alone to be dangerous. However, Begura had cut her hair short, and her small eyes and crimped nose were hardly beautiful. She joined a caravan travelling to the western capital as a handmaid. By the time they arrived, the year had turned, and Begura was 13 years old. She parted ways with the caravan and began living as a street urchin. Playing the clown turned out to suit Begura's personality. During the day she would fool around and show off her sleight of hand to earn small change. At night, she slept in an irrigation ditch to shield herself from the cold. She had been living this way for some time when she began to hear talk of a woman who resembled her mother's portrait. I am sure I saw her at the biggest house in the city. Admittedly, it was only the one time, someone informed her. Choosing to trust those words, Begura made her way to the looming mansion. It was indeed the biggest residence in the western capital, and they were not interested in admitting a filthy wretch like Begura. So instead, she waited for someone to come out of the house. "Big brother, hold it right there," she heard somebody cry. A well-built man stepped out of the gate. He was just a man barely a few years past his coming-of-age ceremony. He wore much nicer clothes than Begura. His crisp eyebrows no doubt made him popular with the young ladies. A girl followed him, presumably the owner of the voice Begura had heard. She was of marriageable age and very beautiful, despite the piercing look in her eye. The ample fabric of her outfit was silk, the very kind that had passed through Begura's father's hands so long ago. It had been many years since she'd touched silk with its distinctive sheen. "Come back here this instant. Our older brother is kind enough to be your bodyguard. You need to apologize." Arg, he would never do it if grandfather hadn't personally asked him. Another young woman followed the imposing girl, and she had striking red hair and emerald eyes. Unlike the first girl, kindness shone in her eyes. Begura thought this second girl was about her own age. How could they be so different? One was a dirty street urchin, and the other might as well have been a beautiful princess. Then Begura heard another voice. Yin, that's quite enough. She hadn't heard that voice in years, and yet it dredged up scenes she thought had been lost in the abyss of her memories. Lady Yu is going to the rear palace. Think of her station. A woman appeared, a beautiful woman, slim and tall, with skin the colour of an elephant's tusk and a body that was all flowing curves. The girl called Yin began to pout. Begura, however, could not have cared less. She stood there flummoxed, wondering how this beauty who was supposed to have been with her all her life could be here now. "Yes, mother," Yin said. "Mother." Begura recoiled. She knew that word. She'd been learning the language of Li for years, and that was unquestionably what it meant. What she didn't know was why this foreign girl was using it. She'd heard that her mother had had a husband and child before she met Begura's father, but they were supposed to have died in the shipwreck. Weren't they? There was yet another voice. "Mommy, it was a child, younger than Begura. The child was not even 10 years old. I want to go too." "Hardly. You and I are going to stay here and study. You can go shopping next time." Or the child clung to Begura's mother's leg, just the way Begura herself had once done. Begura could hardly process what she was seeing. One fact she could not escape was that all the children surrounding her mother were far cleaner and lovelier than her. Begura had only a fuzz on her head. Her hair had been crudely shaved with a razor. She had been wearing the same clothes for years now. Without the money to pay for an inn, it had been many days since her last bath. She was caked in dust. A filthy street child and nothing more. Without thinking of what she was doing, Begura popped out from behind the wall where she had been hiding. She took one step, then another, toward her mother. "Hey, there's something filthy over there," the girl called Yin said. She looked at the woman as if she had spotted a piece of rubbish. It wasn't something without value, but something whose very existence was intolerable. Begura remembered how her father used to look when someone brought him a piece of real junk and asked him what it was worth. "Don't bother yourself with the likes of that, Yin," the man said. Begura was unsure what nuance the man intended with "don't bother." She was fixated on the beautiful woman. Like Yin, the woman spared Begura only a glance. Then she collected the boy and trundled him back inside as if nothing had happened. Begura was at a loss for what to do. On some level, she had been following her mother all this time. She was convinced that when they saw each other, her mother would somehow know who she was. But no, there hadn't been so much as a spark of recognition. Why had Begura spent all those years in pursuit of her mother? Was it so she could have a joyous reunion of parent and child? No, she just wanted to know what value she held in her mother's eyes. That night Begura sneaked into the mansion. She had to know. She had to find out what she was to her mother. She found it a simple matter to infiltrate the house. Maybe it was all those years of fleeing mobs of non-believers. She moved stealthily from room to room, trying to pinpoint where her mother was. A voice came from right behind her. I thought I smelled a rat. Panicked, Bekura tried to turn around, but she was pinned before she could move. A street urchin come to do a little burgling. You're going to leave with 2 less arms than you came in with. The speaker was a man, maybe 30 years old, although Bekura couldn't turn far enough to get a good look at him. I'm no burglar, Bekura said as politely as she could. It was just what the teacher had told her to do. Unfortunately, it backfired. You're an outlander, aren't you? I can hear it in your voice. Bekura found her face shoved hard against the floor. Then the man dragged her to a place where no one would see them. You are still young. Where are you from? Shale, no farther west. What did you come here for? My mother, Bekura gasped. I came to meet my mother. Your mother, a filthy little guttersnipe like you has a mother working in a house like this. He gave a mocking laugh. Let him insult her, Bekura did not care. Instead, she pulled the ragged, weathered portrait from the folds of her robes. What's this? The man said, and he sounded different now. There was a hint of confusion in his voice. She felt his grip relax ever so slightly. You're her kid. Bekura did not know who he meant. She knew, however, that the man's moment of confusion offered her one chance. Escape would not be easy. Her chosen method of exploiting the opening. 14 years ago, my mother was in a shipwreck and was saved by my father. I am her daughter, born to her after their marriage. Tell him the unvarnished truth. Her daughter. Ha ha ha. Yes, that makes sense. There was supposed to be a daughter. The man laughed again. One she abandoned because she didn't need her anymore. The words rang in Bekura's ears. Didn't need, that's right, didn't need her a bit. Why should she if she was coming back here? You had one purpose, to legitimize her while she was undercover in a foreign nation. That's all the value you ever had past tense. She really didn't need Bekura anymore. She couldn't exactly bring you home with her, could she? She had to do her job and you were dead weight. Dead weight. Her head pounded as if she'd been struck. She'd known, of course. She'd known from the moment her mother had disappeared, leaving Bekura and her father behind. So what happened to your old man? A big-name merchant like him probably got himself another wife, no problem, eh? If only he had. If only her father had been such a man. But no, he had been kind and a fool. When he heard her mother might be in Li, he left to go find her and died on the journey. His household collapsed. I was left with nothing, so I came after my mother, with only that portrait, that's right. The man looked like he was thinking about something. He gave Bekura an appraising glance. She had a thought. Here at this moment he was trying to decide what she was worth. If the answer was nothing, then he would dispose of her like something worthless. I'm fluent in my mother tongue as well as Linese and Shayanese, Bekura said, and I speak several other languages as well. Calling to mind the scriptures the teacher had given her, she began reciting in a series of foreign languages. I know my numbers too. I can go for a week on nothing but water. I can take pain and I have quick hands. She showed him a bit of the sleight of hand that she'd learned watching those performers. She would do anything to survive, to find some value in her existence. What a fool. This is the one with all the tricks, the man muttered. All right, I'll give you a reprieve. Let's see what you're capable of. Show me you've got some value. Here he smiled, a sort of leer, and I'll make you my successor. So the man became Bekura's mentor. Chapter 26. Man and Wife. When Baryu was 16, he was summoned by his mother Taume. What I'm about to say to you, you must commit to memory, she said. His mother ran the Ma clan. The clan's purpose was to protect the imperial family, which was another way of saying that its men put their lives on the line, and sometimes they died. Thus, a woman was always left behind, so that whatever else happened, the brains of the clan might remain. Normally, the wife of the family chieftain would fulfill that role. Due to exceptional circumstances, however, Baryu's father Gayashan would not become head of the family. Yet nonetheless, because there was no one else who was qualified, the role fell to Baryu's mother. Taume proceeded to tell Baryu about another of the named clans, the Mai or Snake clan. Outwardly the Ma protected the imperial family, but in secret matters the Mai looked after imperial interests. Although we refer to them as a clan, the Mai are not constituted by simple blood ties like we are. The Mai were experts at gathering intelligence. For exactly that reason, however, they never identified themselves publicly. And although we refer to them as a single clan, the Mai are many, each having what you can think of as a hereditary system. Hereditary, mother, meaning what? The Mai, how do I explain this? I know, say there were 10 of them. Each of those 10 would pick one person to be their successor. Often they choose family members, but if there's no one quite right for the job, they sometimes turn to outside sources. Those successors constitute the next generation of the clan. Moreover, those not chosen to succeed are no longer considered part of the clan, and are very rarely taught its secrets. They may not even know their relatives are part of the Mai clan. Mother, may I ask a question? Yes, what is it? What you are telling me is that the Mai clan could easily insinuate itself into one of the other named clans, is that correct? Taomei smirked. It was clear that Baryu had hit the nail on the head. Precisely. This is the most important thing of all. The Mai clan is the twin of the Ma clan, and as such, only I and a small handful of others know about it. Baryu began to feel an unpleasant gurgling in his stomach. A clan specialized in spying. Yes, that would certainly be appropriate for finding out what subjects and advisors were thinking. Another question, if I may. Yes, this woman who is to be my wife, would she perchance be a member of the Mai clan? The offer had come via his older sister Maomao a few days before. It could not be coincidence that his mother had chosen this moment to speak to him of this matter. That I do not know.